So I want to talk to you briefly about the subject of Agile retrospectives. I think that retrospectives are the most important tool that we have available to us in our Agile toolkit. The problem with them is that a lot of people are having unproductive retrospectives, and I'd like to just teach you a little trick that I've learned from someone else that can make your retrospectives a little bit better, I think, if you just think about them in a different way. The problem with most people's retrospectives is that they're treated like another very common activity that we have at companies, which is called coffee room whining. Now, I'm sure none of you out there do this, but you've probably heard your colleagues doing this from time to time. Coffee room whining takes place in a lot of different organizations. So first I'm going to cover what the symptoms of coffee room whining are and then how they relate to the retrospective. So in coffee room whining we do three things. The first of these things is we talk about everything that's wrong in our organizations. We're really brilliant when we do the coffee room whining because we can actually see all the problems that exist in our organization, which is of course very helpful of us. The second thing that we do when we do coffee room whining is that we invariably find out that it's someone else's fault. Obviously it's someone else's fault, because if it was our fault it would already be fixed, right? And then the third and most important aspect of coffee room whining is that because of the way it's done, nothing ever changes. So this is how most retrospectives end up playing out, and it's a shame because this tends to be unproductive. A good way to view the retrospective is actually that it's the exact opposite of coffee room whining, and I'm going to show you what I mean by that right now. So the first thing, instead of talking about everything that's wrong in the company, in a retrospective we focus on one thing. Maybe we focus on two, but the point is we keep the focus of the retrospective very tight. And we do this for a number of reasons. One is, if we talk about everything that's wrong, the problem seems very insurmountable. And of course then we don't end up doing anything about it because we see that we would have to fix a million things to make any progress. So if we can choose to focus on one thing, it's a lot easier to make progress in the retrospective. We also do this for another really good reason, is once we've made an improvement in a particular area, when we focused on our biggest problem and we found a way to improve that, what used to be our second biggest problem might not be so anymore because the whole situation has changed when we fixed that one thing. The second thing about retrospectives, sure, maybe it is someone else's fault, but what we always focus on in a retrospective is what we can do about the problem. And I'm going to show you a little trick for what you can actually do about problems right now. So when we have a problem, there's one of three things that we can personally always do to fix the problem. The first thing is, sometimes, very occasionally, we can actually, we can actually fix the problem. This actually doesn't happen a lot, because usually if we were capable of fixing the problem, we probably would have done it already. But the second thing that we can do a little more frequently is we can find ways to minimize the problem. We can minimize the problem's impact on us. We can come up with a solution to it that makes it so it affects our daily lives a little bit less. And then the third thing that we can always do, no matter what the situation, is we can inform people about the problem. And I should just quickly point out, in the case that we minimize the problem, we also make an effort to inform about it. But we often make the assumption that all these people over here, the someone else's that we talk about during our coffee room whining, we make the assumption that they're actually aware of what the problem is. But oftentimes this is not true, especially in large hierarchies. We've conditioned our people to not pass problems along up the line. We've built structures and cultures around this about not informing people about problems. So when we figure that people know what the problem is, we're making the assumption that they're informed about the problem, and they might very well not be. So these are the three important rules when we're talking about the second point, which is what we can do about whatever we identify. And because we behave in this manner, the next thing we do is we come up with concrete changes that we can make. Concrete things, not just, oh, we'll do that less, but specifically what you can do to work on the one biggest problem that you have at the time.